Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Bend. My name is Debbie Boone, and I'm your host. And today I have a guest, Dr. Marc Daniel. Now, Dr. Daniel is a visionary veterinary practice owner and a graduate of the Ohio State University. You have to put the in there, and I've learned that over the years. He's a dad to 4 and grandfather to 2, and he brings a deep sense of family and purpose to everything he does, including the way he runs his veterinary hospital. Driven by a mission to serve his staff first, Marc has built a veterinary practice rooted in compassion, respect, and a commitment to changing the culture of veterinary medicine. And that's why he's a guest on The Bend today, because we talk to people who are changing veterinary medicine for the best. He believes that when veterinary professionals are truly cared for and supported, they're empowered to deliver their best to patients and to clients alike. In a field where burnout and turnover are all too common, Marc is passionate about setting a new standard, one where veterinary teams are valued not just as employees, but as people. Through his leadership and example, he's challenging the status quo and inspiring others to rethink what a veterinary hospital can be. So welcome, Dr. Daniel, and thank you for spending some time with us today on The Bend.
Thank you very much. That was a very kind review of myself. That I'm like, who is that guy? I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, I understand. That's why it's always good to have somebody else write your bio for you, because they are more honest and forthcoming with the accomplishments that we make rather than trying to talk about ourselves, which is really, really uncomfortable. And I get that. So tell us a little bit about you and your practice and how you got started in the veterinary profession.
Sure. I mean, I would say I started out just like most, you were interested in animals. You became a, veterinary technician before there was, licensed technicians, and wanted to be like, hey, I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I had to go through the process like everybody does, and got there. And at the time, Ohio State was only Ohio State University, not so it's okay. I don't take it in offense. So yeah, and then I moved out to Pennsylvania, where I live with my family. Raised 4 wonderful children, and now I've got the pleasure of being a grandparent, as you mentioned. So that's been fun. And I, just as a lot of veterinarians do, you start out one practice, you think it's kind of good, and then you're like, well, okay, let's try a different place. So, I landed after like 2 different places. I landed at a vet hospital in Westchester, Pennsylvania, that I thought was the perfect thing for me, and it did. It worked out for many years, being the practice that I was like able to work a lot, and earn a good living, and worked with a lot of great smart people that I would say made me look good. So that was nice. And I thought that it was always supposed to be just my life. I apologize, my room just went dark, but that's just my stupid lights. So yeah, I thought it was going to be the place I was just going to go and work and eventually retire in, and things changed, as you can say. I didn't expect to have to, change the pattern of where I was going, but that's, I guess, is life. And so I guess when you talk about why, what's the bend and what was my, turning point? Well, so this great place that I worked at for many years with a lot of good people, and It got sold by the original owner to one of my associates at the time. And he had a plan for the practice that I didn't really know about, which was to, a couple years through sell it to corporate.
Mm.
And so corporate came in and as it does to so many that at least in my experience, is kind of tears things up and really rattles a good thing. And that's what it did. Uh, I got to a point where I was like, I didn't want to see these great people that have worked alongside me for so many years not be taken care of properly. Like they were just, utensils in order to make money.
Mhm.
And of course, to make money, you got to take care of pets, which, all right, So yeah, I was faced with this point to saying, okay, well, I either leave the practice and then go work for somebody else, which just basically puts me in the same position of having to potentially be vulnerable of what's going to happen, or take on a business myself.
Mhm.
And with the support of my wife, she said, "Yeah, go buy a practice and make it the way you think it should be."
Yeah. And I see that you have hired a CVPM as a manager.
Yep. So I was blessed. So that process took a little while, maybe like 6 months to a year, probably 6 months. And my manager, Melissa is her name. She worked with me at the other clinic. And I happened to, when I bought this, she wanted to come with. So I said, absolutely, I would be nuts not to have her.
Yeah.
And then I had some nurses that wanted to follow suit and a doctor. So it was kind of like I had a team unexpectedly, on my side right from the start, which was big because this all happened in 2019, right before COVID
Oh,
struck
wow.
us all.
Yeah.
So I went out on this, reach, had the funds to buy the practice, and then all of a sudden, come March of 2020, everything kind of shuts down,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. And we were all
we're
kind of like cringing at that point of time because we were
yeah,
like, okay, are we going to be able to stay open? Are we going to have to shut our doors? Are we just going to have to, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I've told people I've been in veterinary medicine for 40 years, but that first year of COVID, I've never worked so hard in my life. And it was like drinking water out of a fire hose. Every day there was a new rule and a new thing and some other adjustment that you had to make. And one of the things I've said through it all is veterinary medicine did such a great job of sharing information and especially in the managers groups because Melissa, your manager, is a longtime acquaintance of mine from the Veterinary Hospital Managers Association. We're both CVPMs, and there was so much collaborative work done by those managers to say, here's how
yeah,
we're managing this and here's how we're managing that. And if we had not done that, we would have struggled a lot more than we did to try to get those workflows quickly going during a kind of crazy chaos that happened during that period of time. So that's an interesting time to start a practice, is in the middle
yeah.
of the pandemic.
And it was a scary, yeah, I mean, it was a scary time because I suddenly took on the responsibility of a lot of people that I cared about. I took on some added people that were already working here. Um,
So you bought an
that's,
existing practice that,
so I bought an existing practice that wasn't really thriving
mm,
very well. Um, so it was, yeah. So we took it over and brought these people along, and we worked really hard in dealing with the COVID scenario. Even though it was a difficult time where, how can a new doctor owner meet everybody
mhm,
when everybody is not able to walk through the door and say hello?
yeah,
And it wasn't like I was going to go stand out on the street and,
Yeah.
wave to everybody as they're, passing by, so to speak. So yeah, that was a tough time, but it was a blessing because it gave me time to also plan and think about this hospital and what it was that we wanted it to be and how we wanted it to be. And so it set us up for a good trajectory of some good changes and success.
So let's talk a little bit about that because this is one of the things that I'm most interested in is the way you were looking at practice and what this kind of new way of practicing looks like to you as opposed to the kind of we've always done it this way practice.
Well, I think that, the benefit I had, I mean, I've been in practice for over 25 years, and the benefit of that time frame working for these other places, I saw various strategies on how to manage the practice, the clinic, the clients, and I, really started to formulate my opinion of how things were going. And I also will have to say, like, I'm a Christian. I have a faith base to my life that I think we should all follow the basis of that. And so that even, you can just mix that right into business, which you should. I wanted this business not to be taking from everybody, but giving to everybody. I saw the taking at that previous hospital after the corporate took it over. It was just, I was like, that is not what I want to see in a practice. And that's not, even if it wasn't my practice, that's just not the way I want to see it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, with Melissa's help, we kind of formulated, I mean, I set the foundation of saying, I want the staff to be well cared for.
Mhm.
I Yes, money is great. We all need it,
Mhm.
but that was not my driving force. My driving force was those people and to give them a better life, that they mattered, and that in turn the hope was is that that would invite a better, happier environment, and then make them really want to care for the clients out there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was, I mean, that was the basis is, love thy neighbor as yourself, like that, if you just do that and you care for these people. So yeah, I mean, that was the basis.
Mhm.
And then throw in a manager that knows what she's
Oh
doing,
yeah.
which is awesome. Because I'm not a huge numbers guy. Like, yeah, I like the end results,
Mhm.
and I want to see a positive trend. But like I said, my bigger thing is the trend going this way for the staff.
Mhm.
And are they seeing a better work life, a better
Mhm.
home life because of their work life? Like, that type of, you know,
So,
trend.
so Mark, describe some of the things that, like you're trying to make life better for your staff. Are there particular things that you do, like benefits or
For
time
sure. Yeah.
scheduling, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the things, well, so I was blessed. My father ran a business many, many years, and I got to see kind of how things were done back in the day. And one of those things was that health insurance is a big expense for people. Beyond child care, it's one of the most expensive things.
Mhm.
And a lot of people can't afford good care. And I was like, all right, I told Melissa, I challenged her, I said, I want us to pay 100% of their health insurance
Mhm.
for them, and then they can pay for their children or whatever. But I want us to pay for that. And she's like, are you sure? Everybody does 50% or everybody does. And I'm like, no, I want it 100%. You
Mhm.
got to give them that. I mean, ultimately, how are you going to take care of them? Provide a good health insurance. So there's that. And then trying to give them good quality hours, to work. I grew up in this field working every other weekend, right? And then having a pager attached to me for emergencies. That was not very fun, and it took me away from a lot of stuff to do with my children.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, this was actually a challenge that Melissa put to me. She's like, we were open 8 to 12 on Saturdays here. And she's like, why are we doing this?
Hmm.
Like, you want them to have good quality of life with their family and everything else, but you're making them come every other, and you didn't want to do it. And I'm like, you're right. I didn't want to do it. It was, but I did it. And she's like, but you're going to see that the clients are not going to care. They're going to see the benefit or see why we're doing it and respect that fact. And so we knocked off Saturdays. So
Hmm.
we work Monday through Friday. And the expectation is to work harder and, do as much as you can in those days. And we added like some evening hours so that we could offer the clients that are working to be able to get to us.
Hmm.
So, yeah, benefits like that. Um, I really felt strongly through my life. It was always a frustration. This is a great example. It was always a frustration. Thanksgiving, always landed on a Thursday.
Yes.
And then I had to go to back to work on a Friday and usually Saturday too. And so I was always like, all the family asks if you can go on a vacation here or go, do this or go visit. And I'm like, I can't, I have to work. Sorry. I work on Friday. It's like, so I was like, I don't want my staff to work on that Friday and
Hmm.
I want them to get paid for it. So they don't have to work. So they get a nice long weekend.
Yeah.
And I give them Christmas Eve off and Christmas post off, which that was another one of those challenges for me by Melissa, but I see the benefit of it. It's taking care of the staff
Hmm.
and I believe they're appreciative of it.
Yeah.
So
So in your experience with having these extended like holiday times and stuff, do your clients give you any pushback?
no.
Yeah.
Now there is the blessing in our area. We live near Philadelphia. So you got Penn over there. We have a lot of emergency clinics here. I mean, full on,
Mm-hmm.
Blue Pearls and other
Hmm.
clinics. So we've got the support to handle those big emergency stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, and so, no, I didn't get a lot of pushback because the clients have access to something, right?
Hmm.
And that again is important to me that they can do that. So yeah, I would have had to make a totally different,
Yeah.
game plan if I didn't have that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm sure Melissa could rattle off all the things we do, but we try and, I try and pay to the high end of the price range for my staff. And that, that is for receptionists, veterinary technicians, doctors, everybody. I want them all to benefit from, being employed here. And I'm lucky enough, we have a great majority of our staff are licensed veterinary technicians, which is apparently rare. I
Hmm.
didn't know this, but it's rare, and that's amazing. I mean, I'm glad. Things like these things that we've offered have really, I think, upped the game for them and made life a little bit better for their home life. I can't, one thing I always recognize in this is that I can't make somebody feel financially stable, but I can at least give them some kind of footing. And that's, my hope is that by the benefits that we provide them, they have some stability there that, they can not going paycheck to paycheck. That was one thing that I always heard that I just drove me crazy. And so I was always looking for, I had mentioned like, childcare. That's one that I still haven't figured out. State
Hmm.
of Pennsylvania does not make it easy for an employer to help.
Hmm.
And that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Um,
Years ago, one of my friends, Brenda Tassiva, was managing four hospitals in let's see, where was she? Indianapolis area. And they actually bought a house behind their hospital and
yep,
made a daycare for all their team and
yep,
had a licensed child care worker that came there. And she said it was probably one of the smartest moves they had made because if the kids were sick, the moms could just walk over and check on them or their dads. And people came to work and people didn't have to worry about struggling for childcare and they could make it a reasonable price because they were in control of how much they were
Right.
paying everybody. And she said, and it worked out really well. And I thought, gosh, what a forward thinking. I mean, if you had enough people who had kids who needed that service, that yeah, you actually could figure out a way to do it and do it within the practice. And why not?
I I had a very similar idea, but because I my practice is sort of situated in close to a neighborhood, and I was like, my neighbor, I could maybe convince him to let me buy his house, and I could do that, but uh, it hasn't got there.
It
So, but
hasn't gotten there far yet.
no, no, it
Well, it's
hasn't.
it's on the back burner.
Right.
So what about like vacation time? I mean, when I was managing practices, one of the things I've always been surprised about is that people will go to work for a practice and they won't have any vacation time until they've been there a year. And
Mhm.
people are going to be fried after a year. So in our practice, when you signed up and you came on board, you started earning vacation time from the first day you walked in the door. And people look at me like, well, they'll just use it and quit. I went, well, no, they didn't quit. We had great retention in our practice. And people are always shocked when I said, look, my most of my receptionists average being there 10 to 15 years. And they went, you're kidding. I went, we had one that was there 32 and I was there 19. So if you treat people well, they don't change jobs. If you have a great
Right.
culture and you treat them well, they don't change jobs. Is that what you're finding? The same thing? Is that you have?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I didn't say is like, I put a major investment in upgrading the hospital. And so I made this like practically a brand new building. And, didn't spare any expenses as far as the quality of the equipment and everything that's within it. So it's a nice environment. And the beauty of it is like this was also a house attached to the clinic kind of thing, and I turned the house into a cat hospital, and there was another section, an apartment that I turned into the staff's lounge, which is, they've got a wonderful lounge to hang out. They can periodically, when a kiddo needs to come, they can come and hang out back there, and they're not gonna, you know, be in amongst the clients and such. So yeah, retention is. I was actually talking to Melissa about this, that I was so amazed to think that for the most part, I've had to fire one person early on, but for the most part, the only staff I've ever lost here is because of family decisions, either too far from home or needed to stay home with their kids. And so, yet, nobody else, is, I'm not having to release people because they're not being,
Mhm.
everybody, I'm blessed to say that everybody here is fantastic and they're wonderful human beings. So it makes it easy, but yeah, we're very lucky to retain everybody that started working for me right from the beginning.
I'll have to tell you my childcare story. When I was young, my family owned restaurants, and I was like you. I would say if your kid's sick, you can bring them up here, and they can hang out in this unused dining room. And so it was like a Thursday or Friday lunchtime, and we could seat about 300 people in this restaurant, and two little girls were back in the back because they had to stay home from school. Well, they decided that they wanted to play swimming hole, and I don't know what involved swimming hole except that it means that you take all your clothes off and you run through the dining room naked. So they were they were about 4 and 5 years old, and they stripped down and they took off running through the middle of the lunch crowd with not a
Oh,
stitch on. So
oh,
we had to have a better plan for confining them in the future because they were bored and they figured out something to do with themselves that wasn't quite
uh,
what we had planned for them.
yeah, yeah, that doesn't sound like
But
yeah,
that's kids.
it
That's
would be humorous and it's a good story,
it's a
right?
great
So
story. It is a
yeah,
great story.
yeah.
So in looking at these kind of your career how you started and working in this practice. What do you think your biggest career mistake was?
Well, I honestly, I mean, I think that so when I worked at this previous clinic, the years I the and I would attest a lot of things I learned from that, owner, the original owner of the practice. And as he was heading towards retirement time frame, he would, hey Mark, are you interested in buying this? Hey Mark, you want to buy this? Are you sure you don't want to buy this place? And I was like, because I was doing a lot of veterinary missions work and other stuff that I was traveling and coming back, and I was like this was just I enjoy the work. I've been blessed to have the skills to do this stuff, and so I was doing it faithfully. And but I was like, no, I'm not going to own a practice. And that practice was a daytime emergency rehab facility. It did really well. And the sad part of that was that because I didn't know I wanted to buy a practice first off, which is a bummer. So that's my mistake. And I didn't realize how fun it is to run a business when you have the right people.
Yes.
And so I would say that watching that clinic kind of just sink, uh, it was a bummer. Like I could have turned that huge place with a lot more people than I have employed here. I think we could have made it a great place. And unfortunately, I made the wrong decision at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everything is for a reason. And
Yep.
so here you are, setting an example. Now, so you have this one hospital and you have a great manager and a great team. Does that mean that you want to have more hospitals?
So that's a great question. I've wrapped myself around. I I work in other things. I'm a part of some boards and we do some things. And this uh, challenge came up recently that as we get older, we tend to de-risk our life. And their challenge is, why are you de-risking at this stage of your life? You need to re-risk and up it. And so I was like, okay, man, that sank right in the heart. Like, so what does that mean? And so I'm like, either that means I need to buy more practices around me and try and employ the same business model that I have, or which obviously takes a lot of time to do that stuff, right? Or talk to people like you or others and try and say, share what I've learned uh, in the short period of time that I've started to think about this is that there are others that have a similar pattern of running their business. They're just not a lot out there.
Mhm.
And corporates probably took a lot of those types of people away. And so I'm really trying to say out there is like treat your people well. Your practice is going to thrive. And it's not it's not because of, like there's not a one pinpoint thing
Mhm.
uh for sure. Like so trying to get that word out there is kind of what I've started to do. And maybe the Lord will challenge me some point to take on another hospital, but right now it's really focused on this, hospital and the people within it and what other things we can do for the community around us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love that. I've always believed it. The people right and the money shows up. And if you take care of your staff, they take care of your clients, and your clients take care of your business. But we have some very short-term thinking, I think, in our profession where it's all about the dollar at the end of the day rather than the multitude of dollars at the end of the year.
hmm
We've really taken care of everybody and we don't have a lot of turnover. And the other thing I think that people miss is turnover is expensive and
yeah,
the mistakes are expensive and the training is expensive and the constant hiring is expensive. And so if you think, oh, well, I can't afford to pay my receptionist 25 or $30 an hour, but if you think about the time that somebody like a manager who is an expensive person spends in placing ads and interviewing people and training people and then having them turn over after 6 months and then placing ads and interviewing people, then you've wasted a lot of extremely valuable time and costly time when you could have just paid that person more and kept them for a long period of time. And I guess when I stopped managing hospitals and started consulting, it was really funny. I kind of thought that everybody managed hospitals the way that we did, and
Mhm.
that you looked at your profit and loss statement and that you looked after your people and you had vacation and you had pet care and you had all these things. And I got out there into the world and thought, oh my gosh, people are not doing the things the way
Yeah,
I see that they should be done. And so, like you, I kind of took it on as my mission to go and share what it looks like to do it like we did it, and to have that long-term staff retention, to have a 90% compliance rate on preventative care, and to have clients who thought you walked on water. And you can do that if you get the right people and you do the right things and you continue to emphasize what's those things that are important rather than looking at how many wellness plans they sold in a day, and if they didn't, to beat them over the head with a stick because they didn't. Not the way I think you should manage hospitals at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So in thinking about it, the value of maybe networking, have you found that, how did you find Melissa? I mean, that was obviously she was there, but
yeah.
that's an
Uh,
asset.
I I can cheaply say that God kind of put people in my path, and that has it when I'm listening to that, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like I got a good example. I had a nurse that needed to leave because she wanted to be close to home and with her family. And this day that she walked out this practice is this within the same hour, a woman came in that was wanting a job.
Uh,
And I was like, Melissa, what, give me the scoop. Like, is she, what's the deal? And I said, this is a no-brainer. You got to hire her. Like, I mean, you can't get it any prettier than that, right?
yeah.
So,
Right.
um, and I have to say, like, Melissa is my person to reach out to people. I am one of those classic veterinarians that is very introverted. I don't really need to talk to, other veterinarians and so on and so forth. I mean, I love my vets that I have here. They're wonderful, but she always challenges me when I go to conferences and such. And she's like, "Don't you like to meet people?" I'm like, "No, I'm right here.
Not
This is
really, no.
cool." Yeah,
Yeah.
I am. I am happy in that context.
Hmm.
So yeah, and yeah, so I'm not the big, reach out to all these people and
Right.
stuff, but Melissa is,
Hmm.
as you know, and that's the great, again, I make a like an analogy of, like the body has to have two hands, has to have 2 feet, legs, arms, head. If you don't have a hand, it makes it a little harder. If you don't have your feet, it makes it harder to move. So every one of the people in my office has a specific gift that really brings it to the whole body to make it the way it is. I would say that I'm probably the neck and Melissa's the brains of the bunch. And so I just hold her up on that. Yeah, it's kind of that's the blessing of this is that everybody, even the doctors, like we don't all practice the same. And so my doctors that I have here have very differing styles of practice. And clients love either all of the different ones or they like one specific, and that's okay. Like, that's it, the variation is very helpful in that
Hmm.
aspect. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as they're not practicing like voodoo or something, it's okay.
Correct. I mean, we all want a top tier
Yeah.
medicine. And I certainly expect that I have those expectations for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm. So this is, I mean, obviously buying a practice is a big decision, and you're kind of kicking yourself for not buying your first one, which I can understand. The first practice that I managed, I managed it for 19 years. And when I left, the associate veterinarian was the one who ended up buying it. And he went, "No, you can't leave because, I was gonna, we were gonna run this thing together." But an opportunity came, and it was a lot more money, and so I headed on down the road. But I wish I had had the opportunity to buy that practice because I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it after 19 years, and I could not, as a layperson, buy it.
Yeah.
Of course, now there's workarounds. I guess I could have bought the building, or I could have bought the equipment or something like that. There's always a workaround. But it probably worked out for me that I had the freedom to do out and about because I am an extrovert. So the social butterfly stuff works for me. And then I have to come back to my nest and just kind of veg out for a little bit and relax. Um, so what advice would you give to someone who is looking at practice ownership? I feel like there for a while, we had a whole kind of a group of young veterinarians who were afraid to own a practice, that they just didn't want the headaches and the responsibilities. And they looked at those boomer practice owners and go, oh my gosh, they work 80 hours a week and they never take lunch. And I don't want to have a life like that. But I think you've proven there's a model where you can have boundaries and you can have a life and stoke in your staff. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to decide should they buy a practice as a young veterinarian?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely correct. Like when I came out of vet school, you got maybe two classes teaching you how to own a practice and whatever. But we already had the mindset if you need, you want to do something, you got to buy it and run it. And then it sort of changed the pattern, and certainly corporate makes it very easy to go work for somebody but not have that ownership. But I would challenge a lot of the younger generation that's coming out there. It is an enjoyable type of thing. But as you said, you have to make it in a way that the puzzle pieces fit together so that it can run well. I can go on vacation and shut my phone off, and I know that this place is going to go the way it should go because my expectations, again, are grounded in a foundation that I hope most people hold, and that is to respect others and take care of others as you want to be taken care of. So, that being said, like creating a business structure that has good nurses, good receptionists, a good, manager that knows what they're doing, and you just be the leader with, hopefully it's you're a good leader. I mean, you gotta have, some of those qualities, I guess, but it isn't as scary as they all put it out. But I do get it, like people, the other part we didn't mention is like the debt that the veterinarians come out with. And that's a real, then they're challenged to create more, take on more debt by owning a practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's some scary parts to it, but I've listened to some other podcasts and such that there are some people out there talking about how to do it and do it better and right. And if you do this, you too can enjoy the act of being a veterinarian and an owner.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the most enjoyable things for me is when I get to work with veterinary entrepreneurs before they even start a practice, and we get to set the groundwork in place and figure out what their philosophy is going to be and set the tone for that business and have all the pieces of the puzzle ready for when we start to hire and start to unlock the door. And then the rest of the stuff gets easier. But a lot of times I think what happens is they buy a practice and not really having a skill set that says, I know how to manage. They go through and they make mistakes and they struggle and they do the best they can. And then they get to that sometimes there's like a 5 year mark. And the 5 year mark is when we get to the point where we can no longer control all the pieces in a 24-hour day. And then we have to think about something else. Well, by then, you got to go fix the stuff that was laid down incorrectly, and cleaning up is harder than starting right. And so, my admonition for entrepreneurs starting is find somebody who is a good consultant who will coach you through the beginning
Yep.
stages, or a great manager like Melissa, and then it does become easier. You said I can go on vacation. My practice owner didn't work the last 6 months before he retired. He lived in another state and established residency in Florida so that he could sell his practice and not have to pay income tax on
Oh
state
gosh.
income tax when he sold the practice to the associate. So when you build a practice that runs without you, then that's the ideal. That is, and I could leave, and I didn't have phone calls all day long. And I tell managers, I said, you've got to teach people to have autonomy, to
Hmm.
have confidence in themselves, to teach them how to make decisions on their own, because otherwise they will just work you to death, and you will get nothing accomplished in big picture strategy, which is what your job is.
Yeah,
So teaching people to be proactive within every single role is so important. Also, in running a business that
absolutely.
runs itself, and it will
Yeah,
run itself if you do it the right way. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So any fun facts about you? Do you have any special talents that we could share with our audience?
Man, special talents. So I would say, well, I'm a beekeeper. I love, things. I am a crazy person about renewable energy. So I'm, really big into solar and battery backup systems. So, yeah, I love a lot of the things other than just veterinary medicine, and being outdoors with the bees. It's a great thing.
Yeah, my granddaddy was a beekeeper. He had apple orchard, and so all the beehives were under the apple trees. And I personally plant a lot of flowers and stuff for my pollinators, so that we
Yeah.
have, and I have a garden, so I have tomatoes, and I grow a few things, but I don't have a whole lot of room, but I grow a few things in raised beds. But I always plant things for the bees and the pollinators. So thank you for
Well,
keeping
there,
bees.
that's awesome. They appreciate that for
Yes,
sure.
yes. Well, and I appreciate you keeping bees, because without bees, we have no food.
That is true in
That's
a
right.
lot of ways.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Anything you would like to say about yourself or your hospital, or a favorite book that you'd like to share, or a quote that motivates you, or even a shout out to somebody that helped you along the way?
Uh, I I don't have any specifics. If with this conversation, if it sparks somebody's curiosity of how to make this happen, certainly I'd be open to reaching out. I own Brandywine Valley Veterinary Hospital. It's got a website. It's in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and I would say my manager can field all the questions, and is
And your manager is Melissa Stedman, who is a
correct.
CVPM and who's been a CVPM for a long time, because we've been CVPMs together for a long time. And she's been very active in the Veterinary Hospital Managers Association over the years. And so I can say that when you chose well, because she is a rock star in our profession,
Sure
and
is.
good for you. Well, thank you again, Mark, for first of all building a hospital that looks after its people, and therefore its clients and its patients very well, and making it a great place to work, and showing that there is a way to do it and still be profitable and still pay
Yep.
people well and still compensate them and look after them, and let them have a good life to live. It's
Yep.
not I feel like a lot of times we're, as human beings, very negativity biased, and we want to complain a lot. So we've been complaining a lot in the world about the woe is me veterinary medicine. But as I go around and do consulting work, and I talk to teams, and I teach, I find that there are a lot more hospitals that people enjoy working in, and they enjoy their profession. than we are led to believe listening to the noise. And so
Yeah,
thank you for sharing some positive light on our profession because it really is a great profession. I've been doing it since 1985, so I'm kind of partial to it. And I thank you for setting up an example that other people can use to make it better.
absolutely. My pleasure.
And thank you very much to the audience for listening to this episode of The Bend. We will put Dr. Daniel's information in the show notes, and so if you have a question about his business model, he can fill those for you. And if we into Managed Vets Consulting can help you manage a practice and lead like Dr. Daniel, happy to be here for you to do that. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Bend.